It used to be that Star firearms were a household name here in the United States. They were brought in by Interarms. But Star goes way further back than that. And the Star Model B, the Star Model A, based on John Moses Browning principles, but with some differences.
The Eibar region of Spain has a rich history of arms making. And that history extends well before the 19th century. But toward the end of the 19th century, you start seeing some established firms taking over. And certainly by the first decade of the 20th century, we see some big names starting to emerge. And one of those big names that continues well into the 20th century is Star BA. This is a company that started about 1905, certainly by 1908, they're officially established by two brothers, Julian and Bonifacio Echeverria. And they start out making what are essentially copies of some popular designs of the era, particularly Mannlicher handguns. By 1919, 1920, they start making a gun that, in terms of its lines and some elements of its construction, strongly resembles the iconic Colt 1911.
When you look at these guns today, they are beautifully made. The polish on them, I mean, they are just lovely guns. It's true, they don't make them like that anymore. And that's, of course, because Star's out of business. They couldn't if they wanted to. But they are really top quality guns in terms of their materials, in terms of their finish. You just rack the slide on one and you know that this is a well-fitted gun.
Their first gun, the Model A, came out in 1921-22. It just looked like kind of a reduced version of the government model. There were some slight variations in it. It was chambered in the Spanish military caliber at the time, 9mm Largo, which is basically just kind of a stretched, slightly more powerful version of the 9mm Parabellum. And then about 1933, they came out with what was called the Model B, virtually identical to the Model A, very, very similar. However, it was in 9mm Parabellum.
The point in developing this design is Star wants to obtain government contracts, particularly police contracts, with the Guardia Civil, which is the Spanish police force. And the Spanish police they're a little picky about certain elements of the design. They want some things present, they want some things taken off. And so the design goes through some revisions in 1921 to 1922, but eventually it comes into what we know today as the Star Models A and Model B. When you think of a design that's named A and B, you think A comes first and then B's a revision. Actually, that was Star's way of distinguishing between two different chamberings. The Spanish at this time are not using 9mm Luger like so many other countries in Europe. They're using 9mm Largo, which is a slightly longer cartridge case. The Star Model A's are chambered in 9mm Largo, and these are the guns that are used by the Spanish police, the Spanish military, Spanish government contract guns. But Star is a commercial firm. They want to sell the guns that they're making for the government elsewhere in the world. They want to fulfill contracts in other countries, and many other countries are using 9mm Luger as their official chambering. And so Star makes the Model B in order to fulfill the need for a 9mm Luger chambering.
When World War II came along, Adolf, being good friends with Francisco Franco, etc., availed himself of a number of Spanish guns, one of them being the Star Model B, which was in the German 9mm Parabellum caliber. And so they bought several thousand variants of the Star Model B. There were basically 5 different versions, most of them just involving markings and minor details. After the war, the guns were adopted by the German police as well as police in Spain. And when the Spanish switched over to 9mm Parabellum, they jettisoned the Model A and picked up the Model B. The Model B also was used in some numbers in the USSR. and continued to be made in civilian versions up until the 1970s, 80s.
For the longest time in Hollywood, when they needed a 1911, it was actually a Star Model B that you were seeing. Hollywood had a great deal of difficulty trying to blank adapt 45 ACP cartridges. Most blank cartridges are manufactured by just crimping the ends of the casing. Get what they call a star crimp. With the 45 ACP, if you were to star crimp or rose crimp the end of that casing, it would be way too short to fit in the magazine and to feed. So what they did was they used a Star Model B because from 10 feet away it looks exactly like a 1911.